how we started. Few people know Shelley Cohen, Daniel Blackman does, from National Wildlife Federation. So usually around the inauguration, we would be fundraising for the Green Ball. And we would be getting our dresses and getting everything ready. It was not gonna happen this year. We were drinking too much Chardonnay and needed to figure out a way to direct our energy. And so we started a small group just to fundraise for women across the country who couldn't come to the Women's March. And we paid for them to come. From that was a big passion, obviously a lot of momentum that came out of that march. And we grew and we grew and we grew and we changed our name to SWAN, Strong Women Action Network. And why SWAN? Well, first of all, 2 environmentalists started the organization, so that made sense. But the SWAN has specific characteristics that I've seen not only in our group, but in groups emerging across the country. They're fierce. They're very protective of their territory. Somebody comes to their nest and messes with it, they're gonna fight back. But one thing that you might not know about swans is that they do something really cool in nature. It's called a wedge. And they work together by creating a V shape, and with this V shape they get lift from each other. And they actually get further, faster. And the military noticed this. So the military started creating wedges in some of their approaches because they could get into the enemy lines with this kind of triangle-shaped formation. And what I see tonight is a bunch of wedges. I see Planned Parenthood, I see David Blue, I see SWAN, I see John Ossoff's campaign. All of us are wedges. And so, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing the work that you're doing. I hope we all get lift from each other. I hope that we can continue to work together beyond what happened, which is going to be great this month here in Atlanta, because we've got 2018 and we got 2020, and we need to stay woke. If there is nothing else that we learned in November, it's that we need each other, we need to be involved, and we cannot stand idle.
And I moved to the northern Atlanta suburbs at the end of 2009 from Denver. And I'd always lived in more aware places and more liberal places, and I'd never lived in the suburbs in my life. But I found myself here and struggling to find community. And I'm very extroverted, and I never had that problem anywhere. But it was clear that people wanted to talk about certain things in the northern suburbs of Atlanta and not things that I was interested in talking about, things like being pro-choice or what my political views were, or perhaps that I did not belong to that Baptist church. And I got a lot of polite smiles or worse. And it was clear that if I was going to have a social life, because when you live in the suburbs, because of the traffic, you're very close with your neighbors. If I was going to have a social life, I was going to have to tamp this down. And that's very against who I am. And so I did that for a few years. And then I met Stacy, and that gave me hope about 4 years ago. In a very funny thing that I won't repeat tonight because I've said it so much. You'll have to listen to our podcast from David.
It was in a bar.
It was in a bar. And I threw out the word feminist somehow, and she picked it up, and the rest is history. But it gave me hope that there were other people in Georgia that had a consciousness level that was similar to mine, and I just needed to find them in the suburbs. And then the presidential election was happening. And I live in East Cobb, as I'm sure you all have heard of that area. It's very, very red and conservative, and it's new to Cambridge country. And everyone was very frightened to talk about it and to be out and come out of the woodwork. And there were Trump signs everywhere, and nobody was putting a Hillary sign up. And I decided that it was worth it to me to be true to myself and to find other people hiding in this sea of red than to stay quiet. And so I hosted this Hillary rally, and lo and behold, 200 women showed up on very, very busy corners. And that was in September. And then the unthinkable happened, and on November 9th, after taking some time to figure out what we were going to do besides mourn, that's just not me.
Drink Chardonnay.
Right. After I did that, I really saw the need from a lot of women on Facebook that instead of just being despondent and talking about it, how can we channel this into action? And I really felt like, with my organizing partners, why not us? How about if we take this on and go ahead and give people a platform? So we broke off from a kind of a social liberal group up there, which was good enough at the time because at least we could find each other and talk. And formed Pave It Blue on March 10th to really get behind John Ossoff. The stars aligned, right? And the whole world is watching Georgia, and this is our chance to send the message. And so, you know, I take little of the credit of how Pave It Blue took off because there were people just waiting for an opportunity, and I feel like I just kind of pushed a button and said, here you go. So it's an honor to be a part of that group. We are just in Metro Atlanta right now, but certainly not just the 6th District because as I was speaking to Altera, after June 20th, we're just getting started, right? This happens to be a very visible time for us and an easy time for people to get engaged, and we're going to keep them engaged because, like you said, we've got 2018, we have more special elections, I'm sure, coming up. Who knows who the current president will appoint and bring out and pull out, and who knows. So there's a sea of blue, and not only in the community, and that's incredibly important to give people a place to feel like they can be themselves and get active, but also be emboldened to maybe run. And if not them, talk to friends about running, and we're seeing people just absolutely stepping up to that, and that's incredibly exciting. And I was this close to getting on a plane going back to Denver before this happened, and now this is kind of a funny thing to me. I can't imagine leaving Atlanta. I have such a strong, thank you. I have such a strong and huge community now of people, bigger than I've ever had anywhere I've lived. And so I just am really excited for the future and meeting all of you all and people outside of Atlanta who come in, and we're all going to stay in touch. And it just seems like this, we're like the wings of the butterfly that change the course of the weather across the globe, right? And we're not going to unring that bell. It's just going to keep growing, and so I'm incredibly excited.
You should be afraid. You should be scared to death. Fear is the foundation of your purpose. Chase your fears, or trust me, they're gonna find you. I realized quickly I was living absently in a reality where we didn't have to worry about the president's daily encounters. I became a voter during Obama's presidencies, and man, that was the good old days. Most of us woke up on November 9th shocked by the current state of affairs in this great country that we are all blessed to call home. That shock quickly transformed into a call to action to move onward together. United as American men and women who believed that our nation could and had to do better. Through the weeks and months that followed, we gained the momentum we needed to stand up for our country and the values that we all hold so dear. I was afraid. I was terrified. I started a petition demanding that this career politician stop the name calling and finally start a conversation in a debate with her opponent on the public stage. It started with a tweet and it spread like wildfire. Thanks to the SWANs and Pave It Blue, we were able to get over 1,000 signatures in less than 72 hours. I started making calls to Karen Handel from day one and found myself on her blocked call list on day 3. I went from being an online whiner to an on-site activist, and suddenly I had thousands of my neighbors counting on me to get this to handle, to make sure their voices were heard. And I only had this one chance to make these debates a reality and take advantage of Paul Ryan's presence. For all those people that were counting on me and all those people that weren't. It was about so much more to me than my supporters, than me and my supporters. It was about educating my community and informing my neighbors that were gunning for her, who actually would be representing them without ever hearing from them. So I took a shot. I was able to snag seats at what was bound to be the showdown of the century. And I sat in the crowd for hours, putting on a fake smile from ear to ear, clapping at the elitist, holier-than-thou comments of people that I honestly thought were better than me. And I watched the Secret Service in a room full of police officers escort dozens of people out. And I was scared. I was not going to see this through. But when the hours of Republican ranting finally came to an end and it was Handel's turn to speak, she couldn't get through even 2 minutes of dialogue without bashing her opponent and couldn't speak to her own accomplishments. Her mediocre attempts to discredit John Ossoff didn't work, and I knew I could take her. I worked my way through the crowds and took selfies with the Speaker of the House, handed him my petition, and I coaxed him into signing it. And luckily, the crowd was so overwhelming, he didn't have a chance to warn Handel about what was coming. So I made my way to her. She was the fakest form of nice you can be when I first greeted her. I mean, when I handed her my petition, her tune changed immediately. I was the one that scared her.
Amen, sister.
Woo! I represented everything she was trying to avoid. She tried to give the petition back to me. And when I demanded that the debates she claimed to have scheduled be open to the public, she simply walked away from me. She was afraid, but not like I was. I was afraid of losing my livelihood for defending my democracy. I was afraid to let down my community, my friends, my neighbors, my family. I was afraid that the people that were going to vote for her because of her party's platform that she represents. And I was afraid that my district would be represented by someone who couldn't face us. I had so much more to be afraid of than her in that moment. But yet, that fear that drove me to that Marriott that day, the fear that drove me to start that petition, the fear that started this movement, and that's just the best kind of fear there is. She was afraid to be exposed, but I was afraid I would lose it all if she wasn't. It's worth noting that after 2 weeks of receiving my petition and extensive media coverage, Mrs. Handel has finally confirmed 4 debates as of the day that my story was published in the AJC, a feat that I wouldn't have been able to conquer without the support of SWAN's and Pay the Blue Network. So thank you very much. And when you have nothing to hide, your fear is founded on great things you are destined to achieve. You can use that fear to find your voice. You can use that fear to find your feet on the path that you were destined to walk. You can use that fear to shatter that glass ceiling. You can be empowered by the fear that is within you, or you can go into hiding because your fears are too great to overcome. Fear is the great motivator and master of us all. Let it fuel the fight in you and embolden your steps rather than paralyzing your future. I am no different than any of you. I'm just a 24-year-old who spent their whole life in the 6th District. And I took my first steps here. I love this place so much more than I could ever put into words. It's so precious to me, and I just couldn't hand it to Handel without a fight. So I did something about it. And I'm only here to serve as a reminder for all of you that you can do something. You don't have to sit quietly and let someone else make the decisions for you. Your greatness knows no bounds, and you can change the world. You don't have to be a captain of industry, you don't have to be a politician, and you don't even have to be the smartest person in the room. But you do have to have the heart to persevere and the mind to harness your fears into greatness. And for every handful of no's you'll receive along the way, you'll maybe get a couple of yeses. And that'll keep you going right when you need it most. But we can't stop there. Each of us, every SWAN in here and abroad, must persist, resist, and conquer.